Live and direct, live and a date no jive.
Legalize it.
So how much can a koala bear? Koala bear, koala bear. Koala bear. Barry pulls a joint out of his pocket. Bill says, "Great, Barry, a reefer."
Hi, welcome back to the Koala podcast. And in this episode, we've got Jackie Gonzalez-Becerra from, I hope I pronounced your surname properly, probably not. You can slap me on the wrist in a second and tell me how it's said properly. The VP of Revenue nationally or on the East Coast for Weedmaps. Let me know where I've made the mistakes. I say we're fairly easygoing here on Koala podcast, so get all the facts right to start with, and then we'll move into the conversation. Thanks for joining us on the show, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, as a proper Englishman, and I will not, give you negative points for pronouncing Becerra wrong.
Sarah,
even
okay,
I don't even roll my R's. It's my father's from Cuba, so I've got a Hispanic name and a not very good Spanish speaker here, so it's no worries there. But yeah, I'm the VP of Revenue for all of Weedmaps nationally, internationally. Been with the company over 9 years now, so feels like.
All right, so you've been around for most of the life of the company.
Yeah, Weedmaps is 15 years old, so it had a few, very, very startup years prior to me, but we still operate like a big startup in many ways, like always learning what strategies we need to, shift and try. And, the cannabis industry is so hyper local. We're always, trying to get creative and try new things. But yeah, I've been around the company for a while now. I feel like I've worked at several different companies. This is probably one of my favorite chapters so far. And I've had different roles at the company. I was the CEO's chief of staff, right out of business school, was a director of marketing for some time here, more of like a marketer by trade. And then I've been on the revenue side for a few years. But I think I like it in revenue. It's kind of where my home is. I like being close to the industry, close to the clients, kind of the team that's really kind of have their ear to the ground with what's happening. So it's been great.
I'm a bit of a lay person, so I'm just going to say, not living in the States, but knowing the States, having been in Portland when this all kicked off around about 2014-15. I know Weedmaps as a platform you go to find a dispensary and then purchase direct from that dispensary. Would that still be the basis of what your business does?
Absolutely. We serve as a platform and app to help people, find the good stuff, as we say. So it's a dispensary locator, and that's kind of how we started. But it's really transformed into so much more than that, especially as people start developing their own brands, like making sure that those brands have, their own voice and their own kind of catalog on the site has been a big focus, so that people that are not necessarily like, where's the dispensary, but hey, where's that favorite brand with that pre-roll that I, tried a couple weeks ago? I want to go find that. And being able to help search by brand, price, compare and shop, have deals associated, with these dispensaries and brands. So definitely giving the consumer a lot more, to do from a shopping experience.
If I was in New York and I bought something there and I wanted to try and get a hold of it in California, you'd go to Weedmaps to find that out. But in the world of weed, that's a little bit difficult, isn't it? Because if you're in New York, a lot of those products, unless it's an MSO, you'll only be able to get it in that particular state.
Yeah, I mean, there's no interstate commerce right now. Hopefully that is in our future. No idea when, but it is. You are seeing more companies go into New York. I have a lot of clients from Michigan going to New York, Florida going to New York, Oklahoma going to New York, California. So there might actually be some products in the future that you will see that you can normally buy in Cali and New York as well. Everyone in the industry, I think sees it as this kind of this big opportunity and this exciting kind of really genuine opportunity. I mean, I think New York City has had the most cannabis consumers in the world way before they were legalized. You know, it's always been at the heart of the culture there, and the cannabis culture is so genuine. So beyond millions and millions of adults that could buy it, just like being a part of that community is interesting to people.
So a couple of things about New York. There's a pretty limited stock of regulated dispensaries, and then there's a very large stock of very unregulated dispensaries or retail outlets. Are you listing any of those unlicensed, or you're only listing the licensed?
So we're only listing licensed, and that's national, international. We only list, licensed, compliant dispensaries and deliveries and brands. And so, to your point, and we would have thousands of dispensaries on Weedmaps if we were listing everybody. But right now we have about 135. I think there's roughly 140 or so open at the moment. So the ones that are open, they are on Weedmaps, with good content.
Basically, you go to the Office of Cannabis Compliance, or whatever they're called in New York, and you see who's opening that week, and you just basically put them up, and then are they just a simple listing until you've had a conversation with them, that particular, or and selling, and then you sell to them that they can list so and so. How does that work?
Yeah, we have a pretty formal process internally to check licenses and all of that. So how it works, and what's nice about New York is, businesses are calling us a month or two before they open to talk marketing strategy and to understand our offering and how we can work together. So we have a lot of time to prepare. Unlike in other markets, they're like, hey, I opened 3 days ago, I need to be on right now. Yeah. And so, once we talk to them, we'll get all their documentation. And we'll run that through our internal kind of policy and compliance team. And then all the checks and balances, shake out, then we put them up. And, it's nice. Like some states, it can be a little clunky from like a tech stack perspective, but New York has got it pretty down. They're working with POS systems that we integrate with, like Dutchie. And so we're able to like same day get their menu live, get it orders enabled, put their deals up so people can shop. And, I think what helps us stand out and can be really useful for like people in New York and tourists alike is just being able to find legal cannabis. Because to your point, like there are dispensaries everywhere, and to the layperson, you see a neon sign with a bright green pot leaf that says cannabis dispensary. You think you're shopping at a cannabis dispensary, but it is like a trap shop, right? It's not legal.
How do you help customers in terms of identifying, especially as you said the word tourist? So a lot of people come in standard old school THC products that are grown and sold as flower, but there's now in the US such a huge range of other types of products with hemp derived cannabinoids. There's the gummy, everything. How do you help people understand what they're buying? Consumers in the States are pretty well educated about this stuff now. I mean, because they have been for a while, but I know they're still learning. I agree. But for somebody coming in from internationally, they really, unless you follow this stuff every day, and even, I do, and I still can't keep up with the different types of products that are being pushed out. How do you educate your clients to educate the consumer, but also, I presume, in the purchase process with you, you're also trying to educate the consumer or direct them towards an understanding of the product that they're trying to get hold of?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we launched this year, or was it end of last year, just recently, was an onboarding quiz, as we call it internally. But pretty much it's a quick little survey when a new person, is on Weedmaps on the app, and it kind of narrows down the focus of what they're there for. Like, oh, are you interested in, flower or pre-rolls or edibles? Are you interested in pickup or delivery? And so we kind of help narrow down like what they're interested in, and then provide the products and the retailers that we can fine. So that's one way. We also have our Learn and News products on Weedmaps, and so Learn is like a Wikipedia for weed. And so if you're like you're like, what is this? Dry sift, live rosin, concentrate. People,
I
it
know.
can
Well,
be very
there's so much jargon. I've
yes.
been
So we
smoking
try
weed
to
since
help
I was
clear that up.
14, but I don't understand half the stuff they're talking about.
I know. I'm just like, give me the weed.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
it can be jargony and confusing. There's so much selection in the dispensaries, and especially when you're browsing on Weedmaps, it's where we kind of start with like, where are you, right? Like, where are you? Like, can you get weed delivered to you? Do you have to go pick it up? Do you have to go browse? And so we help kind of start with like what's available in their area, and then we kind of narrow that down. Like, great. So when you're on the menu, you can filter by excuse me, by brand, by product type, by price. Hey, I only got $50 to spend today. And so once we get them into a business that they're close by, we start to narrow down those choices for them. But it is confusing. And people in New York, I mean, it's you see this trend nationally, but like, flower is queen, right? People, I think, are traditionally still consuming at the highest levels, like just cannabis, flower, sativa. And so I think especially the ability for them to find those different strains is something that we really lean into, because some dispensaries can, the eclipse is happening, it can be the lunar eclipse OG, but like really, like, what are they shopping for, and what are those effects and those aromas that they're looking for is like a big focus for us, and helping them find the right product, and the right flower product in particular. Is there's a lot of differences there.
And then the delivery aspect of it, I'd love you to explain that to me, because they're separate companies who are licensed by the state, that then they create relationships with particular retailers. Do they have to create a relationship with you as well? So when an online consumer comes in and buys from a retailer in Court Street in Brooklyn, I presume there's three down there. Let's say there's only probably two on Court Street that are legal. They both use a different delivery company because they've done their deals. How as a platform, how do you manage that, especially running it national? Because I presume I at the moment I imagine there's not a huge plethora of delivery companies, but the future, I imagine there's going to be tons of them. There can't be an Uber type business until we really go federal, because state-based businesses, I presume, like some delivery companies can build in each state, but it must be so expensive to do. In the end, local delivery services are going to be winning in this game, aren't they? I've never understood that, so I'd be interested to know because you guys must have more knowledge about this stuff than anybody else.
Yeah, and it is, the delivery side of the business is a true saga. It is convenient. People that know what they want love the convenience. Don't have to leave my house. During COVID, we saw deliveries and online orders booming. Everyone did. People really ramped up their resources. They bought more cars, hired more drivers, bought more product, and that bubble has burst, unfortunately. And as gas prices go up and just everything has gotten so expensive, we're actually seeing a lot of our deliveries struggling right now. And I mean, like, I don't know if I'm sure you have a lot of delivery services out in the UK, but it should be more expensive.
It's a bit it's like New York in the 80s. The guy,
yeah, it should be more
the guy who
expensive.
sells it is the guy who delivers it.
Yeah, but you should be more expensive to buy anything and get it delivered to your home, whether it's a cheeseburger or your groceries or your weed. And in cannabis, the delivery operators have really been trying to compete for market share in consumer wallets, that they have delivered at nearly the same price as it would be to go buy it in the dispensary. And so their margins have been hard. And so and that's like really, like, in Cali, we've seen this, California, and Michigan, and so we're seeing some people pull back from delivery and focus on some of those retails. But in New York, just like some of those unlicensed dispensaries that we're seeing, there's a lot of unlicensed deliveries operating, which people are finding.
That was what I was going to get to.
Yeah, they're finding it hard to compete. And they're very sophisticated. They've got apps, and it's a pretty decent consumer experience. Unfortunately for the consumer, though, they don't probably realize they're buying, potentially untested or, illegal cannabis. So I do know that the speed bumps of the regulations in New York, delivery has been challenged by those. They require payment up front. There's probably safety reasons. I don't know exactly all the reasons. They want to make sure that they don't have to take payment in that transaction person to person. But that means that how do you take payment up front when you can't use credit cards in cannabis, right?
And so Stripe won't deal with you, PayPal won't deal with you. I have this. I think I've got about half a dozen podcasts that just concentrate on this endless issue of payments.
Exactly. So that's something from like a technical solution point that we are, focused on trying to figure out how we can make that work within the order flow on Weedmaps. But right now, the deliveries, and to your earlier point, how we work with them is the same way we work with dispensaries. We have a meeting, we get all their documentation, and then we understand their goals, their budget, and we list them accordingly. And for them, we are letting them kind of just link off to order on their website, which is how the regulations are set right now, because we don't want the consumer to have a dead end. Ultimately for us, we want to make sure that it is as easy and accessible as possible for people to buy weed. We want to help our clients sell weed. And so it is definitely something that, we're looking at as well, because it is a clunky kind of experience at the moment.
So which states have the best regulatory environments for a company like Weedmaps to work in, and which have the worst?
The latter will have a long list. So I like to think about what is like good regulation in the sense of just like, what are the lowest barriers of entry, right? Like, how do we let free market exist, let the best businesses rise to the top, and doesn't cost them $5 million to get into the game? So some might kind of dog Oklahoma because the number of dispensaries, but at the same time, it was $2,500 to get involved. And if you're a legacy grower that's got good product and $2,500, then you can start up, right? It's not as burdensome as needing all the, hefty licenses that have hefty fees and, getting your building ahead of time, and you must rent that and do your security protocols. So I thought
spending $5 million before you've even got out the front door.
Exactly. So although that, there was likely too many dispensaries per capita at one point in Oklahoma, the ability to, just let the best kind of put their best foot forward and rise to the top and let consolidation happen naturally has been interesting to see. So I like that model of just lower barriers to entry, honestly. And there's a lot of states that have done it wrong. I don't want to call any of them out in particular, but I mean, it's the speed bumps that we've seen in New York have been definitely challenging. Like there's a lot of states, like, and we were talking about Massachusetts, like our deals product is so popular. People are very price sensitive. They're looking for deals on weed. And in New York and Massachusetts, we can't allow that on our product. And so we have changed that to be like top picks. So just what are some, interesting kind of products and, shout outs about the dispensary or what they carry versus like a proper deal, which is just like a part of the cannabis ecosystem, and just like in retail in general, like discounts and promotions. And so people try to do a lot of, limiting there. But overall, I think the best ones will have, low barriers to entry on licensing fees, like decent laws on advertising, like let people kind of, attract consumers the way that they want to and not have to hide their brand entirely. So I think there's been some good ones and bad ones, but it's
certainly a mixed bag. And you say you're working internationally. Does that just mean Canada, or I mean, what other markets could? If you were working in Thailand, you won't be working there for much longer. Put it that way.
Oh my gosh, talk about thousands of dispensaries. I've been watching that. So we definitely operate in Canada. We have a number of the dispensaries on there. And then we actually used to have an office in Spain, in Barcelona, and operate there. Some of the European, laws were a little gray for, I think, NASDAQ when we went public. And so we did seize those operations then. But Europe is absolutely something that's exciting. We're watching really closely as like Germany rolls out. And of course, in Thailand, understanding like what's happening, what's going to happen. Should we, put resources behind that? So for now, it is just Canada, but we're always, have our ear to the ground and making sure that, if the product market fit is right in a market and it makes sense for us, that we're going to be there. Like ultimately the goal of Weedmaps is anywhere cannabis is accessible, we want Weedmaps to be useful, right? Like you be able to use it wherever you travel to or where you can get cannabis.
Earlier in the conversation, we touched on equity, which, as we all know, is an over-bandied word in cannabis. And there's been some pretty bad regulation in various states that have fooled people that they could sell cannabis cheaply and make a lot of money very quickly. And people weren't given support. And you were saying earlier that it's something that's of interest to Weedmaps in order to help those sorts of individuals and those types of businesses. What is it that you guys can do, even with the pretty murky ideas coming out of various cannabis management offices, state management offices around the country, where they weren't really thought through properly, and most of them have collapsed. And I've noticed with I use Curaleaf as an example. Their idea, they did equity as a big sort of PR push a few years back, but it really doesn't seem to operate, as anything other than, we do wonderful things. Well, what are they? When I'm not quite sure. What practical steps are you guys trying to take? Are you trying to bring sort of groups of individuals, or are you providing education to types of companies to help them operate more efficiently?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on with equity in the cannabis space. Like you said, there's a lot of states that seem like to be doing it right. Their heart is in the right place, don't want to help these people that have been disadvantaged by the war on drugs. And there's a lot of states that are they're getting it wrong. And so for us, we wanted to keep it simple and make sure that it was helpful. And so what we decided to do was, it was the end of 2019, we launched our internal TEAL program, and it's an acronym that stands for Together for Equity, Access, and Legalization. And we just kept it simple. If you are awarded an equity license in your state, you can be on Weedmaps for free for a year. That's it, and we're not over here saying like, oh, because you're Black owned or woman owned or LGBTQ owned, like we're going to give it to you. It's like, no.
Do you get a special little badge, like organic badge or something?
Yeah. So again, it's simple, right? If you have that equity license awarded by the state, you're free for Weedmaps for a year. And we do have filters on the site for social equity. And so people can filter, and then we do try to promote them in organic ways through marketing, whether it's like retention lifecycle marketing, letting people know that these businesses are here. And not only do we let them come on the site for free for a year, we give them a little bit of extra credits, as we call them, so that they can compete. Because an equity license opening up
that's the difficulty. They just can't compete.
It's really expensive, compared to a brand new market, right, on Weedmaps. And so being able to compete in those markets is critical. And we try to make sure that they have the ability to, thrive on the website. And so
what about tech education? Because I presume tech education is probably fairly low in those sorts of businesses. I mean, they know how to use a phone and they know how to use apps. But being on the other side of the equation, so to speak, and providing those services for customers must be a little bit difficult for them sometimes.
It is not only these clients, it's all clients we're doing tech education for still, to be honest. We don't have like a formalized education program for equity clients, but we do partner really closely with a lot of the big, equity groups out there that are kind of, putting on these programs and support for them. And, we'll partner with them and support those organizations to just help, continue to support the equity.
Well, I'm on the
groups.
board of justice, so I might ring you up afterwards and ask
Oh
you
yeah,
if you can help justice.
On the Revel is a really great group in New York that we partnered closely with for the last few years that are constantly providing, education, for these businesses, events, just connecting people with tech platforms like ourselves, and just so they can learn more. And so we try to not remake the wheel of our own kind of educational platform, but just support the ones who are doing it really well. Is kind of where we lean into.
Now, we haven't got much time left. It always happens with these podcasts. I did have one final question, which is a sort of, which is, I suppose the elephant in the room with you guys is you must be collecting Google amounts of data. What do you do with your data? Is it part of future products? How does Weedmaps think about data, and how are you going to utilize it? Are you going to provide it out as products to help business, products to help customers, or is it more just a set of information that helps you at the moment?
Probably all the above eventually. I mean, the data is critical, and being around for 15 years, understanding, consumers' mind patterns.
Your data, I'd love to know your data. I mean, it'd be absolutely fascinating because, well, you've followed, markets go up, down, crash, grow exponentially. I mean, I would suggest you have probably one of the best sets of the industry data that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. It absolutely is something that we use all the time, every hour, daily, internally, to help understand, the best moves for us. But we're providing that more and more to our clients as well. Of course, we give them performance insights on how, what's their return on ad spend and how their money is being well spent on Weedmaps, but giving them insights into market insights and consumer insights.
I presume also things like geodata your geodata must be amazing. I'm obsessed by geodata. So
geodata. All the time. I'm like, how is this, little region outperforming this bigger one? It's it's on a border city and people are driving over probably. Yeah. And so it's absolutely something that we are providing, to our clients, and that data that we provide to our clients will, I'm sure, continue to get, more rich and have more rich insights. The consumer data is fascinating, and we've started to put out these quarterly planners for our clients that just have a lot of rich holiday data. So how they should be thinking about planning, their own marketing in the store, and to consumers around that, and who's shopping for edibles here or there, and the differences between consumers and their demographics. So that's very interesting. And from the kind of getting it out there more broadly, we probably have a lot of opportunity there to do that as well.
Fantastic, Jackie. Well, I'd love to talk further, but my free Zoom is always runs to an end far too early. So thank you very much. We'll get you back sometime for being on the Koala podcast.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Live and direct, live and I take no jive.
Legalize it. So how much can a koala bear? Koala bear, koala bear. Koala bear. Barry pulls a joint out of his pocket. Bill says, "Great, Barry, a reefer."